everyone. I'm so excited to be rejoining you for a terrific conversation that I know I'm about to have. My dear friend, Dr. Rae Wynn-Grant. She is a large carnivore ecologist and also a Net Geo fellow. And I'm just so excited to talk with you, Rae, about what you've been up to.
Oh, thank you, Rue. It's an honor to be here with you. You know, we are friends in real life, so it's also really fun to share these professional spaces too. So I am headed off to Montana next week.
Oh, I love it.
Um, I am working really hard to better understand corridors, wildlife corridors. So big animals like grizzly bears that I study in Montana quite literally walk on their four paws a lot of places all the time, except when they're hibernating. And there are places where it's safe for these animals to walk, and places where it's unsafe. And I've done some modeling to suggest what pathways are safest for them, but I need to test it. So I need to see these animals using these pathways. And so I'm going to Montana to collect some of that data. And then simultaneously, I've just launched a podcast. It is with PBS Nature called Going Wild with Rae Wynn-Grant. And
Oh,
it's
perfect.
my true stories from the field, from my, 15 plus years of being a carnivore ecologist all over the world. And what I think is going to be interesting for viewers is that there's a lot of identity stuff in there. So
Mhm.
it is a balance of stories of, running from being chased by bears and lions to stories about how my blackness shows up in these awesome or sometimes really terrible ways,
Mm.
and what it means and what it all comes back to. I even talk about police brutality in some of these stories that are about living in nature. And so
Mm.
I'm very proud of this podcast. I encourage everyone to listen. It's been a different adventure. It's been a really different adventure for me, but that's what I've got going on right now.
Well, I am so excited about it, and I cannot wait to listen because I am a huge podcast listener. It's
Yes.
like bedtime stories for me,
Oh
you know.
yeah.
So to go to bed to the sound of your voice, talking about all of
Yeah.
your adventures sounds so much fun. So thank you for sharing how people can get involved and
Oh
find.
yeah. Absolutely.
So, Outdoor Afro has been really focused on not only shifting the visual representation of who gets outside, but who leads outside. Can you
Mhm.
tell me a bit about what representation means to you, especially in your field?
Sometimes I contradict myself when it comes to representation because I truly believe the phrase, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And yet at the same time, I didn't necessarily see anyone like me in my exact career, and yet I still became that person. So I know that there are ways to overcome, right? Someone's always got to be the first or one of a few. Um, but at the same time, I think that representation is so powerful, and especially in a field like ours, which is, broadly about nature, and nature is threatened right now. So there's a lot of problems to be solved, and everyone is a problem solver, right? And so to me, that's why representation, especially representation of Black folks in the outdoors and leadership, is especially important because we need people to think to themselves, I'm a problem solver. I can solve this problem here. I can protect nature. I can make it better, and that's why I love the work that you all are doing. And I try to do a lot of it myself so that we can really get to those problem solving moments.
I love what you just said about problem solving. Like everybody can be a problem solver, just in the same way I think about, leadership in the outdoors. Like everybody can be a leader in the outdoors. And, I'd love for you to say a bit about how you help people cross over from fears of
Mm,
wildlife and wild
mm.
places into joy. Because, this work is about joy, right? But then how do we get past those things that people get hung up on?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of this experience with adults, but I have worked with a lot of kids and young people, high school age folks. And I've been present for, quite a few moments where it's folks' first moment in the outdoors, their first outdoors experience. And I think the thing that I love the most is that no matter what we're seeing or where we are, whether it's, bears or wolves or, big, amazing animals or not, the thing that gets talked about the most, I feel like, are insects. Being outdoors almost always means encountering insects that you wouldn't be dealing with if you were inside. Spiders, mosquitoes, the flies that bite you, all kinds of other things. And what I find is a great exercise for me is to really meet people where they're at in terms of insects. Because my goodness, insects are not very pleasant to have on you or near you. And I think that's very universal. I don't know anyone who's kind of like, oh, I'm getting bit up by mosquitoes and that's fine. And I think that's just such a great point to kind of hone in on, because you can be an expert in all things outdoors or you could be a novice, and that is shared. And so I think that helping people get over the inconvenience or the discomfort of living with insects, or recreating with insects, let's say,
Mhm.
is the way that I really try to get people to find the joy in it, to roll with it, to acknowledge that it is not ideal or slightly annoying or uncomfortable, but to find the other things that make it worth it. And it just reinforces so much for me. So it's that, like, giving to other people and encouraging other people that then also makes me feel more solid and more grounded.
I love that. You know, you also just, I'm looking at you, I'm looking at myself, and I also, of course, have had a chance to, see, photos of you in wild places, in wild spaces with wild animals, of course.
Mhm.
And I just would love to talk a little bit about how we show up as all the parts of who we are.
Mhm.
Someone can look at you and look at me and think, oh my gosh, they couldn't possibly be bothered with mosquitoes, or much less like, big wild animals. And so I'd love for you to just invite someone into your world a bit,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
let them know about all the parts that show up when you show
Yeah.
up in those spaces. And you're also a mom and a wife.
Absolutely. Yes. I am, intersectional in a couple of several ways, as we all are. Rue, you're a mom, so I, I do love that powerful aspect of representation too, where you're not just seeing the color of someone's skin in a certain space and saying, ah, that inspires me, but understanding that there's a depth to that person, there's a wholeness of that person. And that's something that I do a little bit of. It can be a little intimidating to bring one's whole self, to a space, but I have definitely done my best to do that more. And so, it is, I just love that you're inviting me to talk about this, because I'm happy for the world to know that when I'm showing up and I have my hiking boots on and I haven't showered in many days and I am looking for a particular animal, to get some data on it, that I am doing that as, a millennial, as a mother of two, as a wifey, as a, an educator and a lifelong student, and as a, woman from a low income urban background, and as a person who really loves the non-nature life, right? I love to be out in the outdoors. I love my job. I love what I do. I also love getting dressed up and going to brunch and having a mimosa, with my girlfriends. And so that is, just part of the fullness of me. But it's really important. It's really, really important. And I know that a lot of that resonates with you too, because I've seen you in your city life. And, and it's cool. It's cool to know that there's a belonging,
Yes.
um, and a value to being one's full self in all places. Because again, I really do think it goes back to problem solving. I think that understanding nature and protecting nature and bringing your full self to that problem solving, no matter who you are, what about you is unique, it only helps.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that, because I always tell people that doing this work has allowed me to be all the parts of who I am.
Hmm.
And so often in corporate life and even, in nonprofit life, you have to leave something at the door.
Yeah.
And what I really hope for people to experience, if I were to strip away everything, I really hope people can experience being able to be all the parts of who they are, and how that fuels you in a very different way than having to live with the constraint of not living in your truth and all the parts of who you are. So that's my grandson in the background.
That's another part of who you are.
That's who I am too. Yes, I have a pandemic grandchild. But in any case, I just really appreciate you talking about the fullness of you in your work. And I know from experience how that fuels me to have the energy to show up and pop up and get on planes. And in your case, do podcasts that are what I hear doing fantastic. And so I just want to actually just, pull out a little bit and let's talk about Black people and how Black people can benefit, and how the thing about Outdoor Afro that's meant so much to me is that in the beginning, it was so much about like, let's get more people to embrace the outdoors. Let's, get people to just participate in the outdoors, right?
Yeah.
And that quickly pivoted into let's shift the visual representation of who we imagine gets outside. And then it pivoted again to let's also shift and include the representation of who leads outside. And I just love to, talk with you a little bit more about restoring balance, especially as we come out of this time where we have been cocooned, literally, through the pandemic. And we had so many no's and things that were closed. And I knew, thankfully, that nature never closes, right?
Yeah.
So I just would love to hear from you a little bit about representation and it's the sense of emerging and being seen, not only professionally, but really in these, important times we find ourselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is I wish we could talk for hours because this is such a great topic. And and there's such an importance, like you're saying, about this period in history right now. And yet a lot of what you mentioned brings me back to my experiences when I was just getting started in this career. And what I think is super notable and related to what you're saying is that my first experiences in the outdoors took place in Africa, far from home. And that's a really unique experience. But guess who else was there? Black folks, right? It was my professors at the time were Black African men, so the people that I saw as experts in everything related to the environment were folks who looked like me. And at a young age, and I have to say at a time when I had pretty low self-esteem, unfortunately, I was going through a lot. What I did see was leadership and knowledge and expertise in Black African people. And that was definitely not a message I was getting back home in the United States. I was not getting that heads up that Black Africans could be in charge of natural resource management, anywhere. So, years later, here I am in North America, working in this country and feeling like one of the only, not the only, but one of very few, Black folks at this education level, with this expertise. And I'm constantly thinking back to what's going on the continent, and indigenous people, and in this case, indigenous Black folks in parts of Africa who trained me, to do the work that I'm doing here. And it's really, really phenomenal. And again, relating it to today and, all of the people that Outdoor Afro's touching, under COVID conditions, I think it's been fascinating to see how so many spaces have been unsafe, but nature has been wide open. It's been one of the safest places. And even in my own little community, my own little Black community, I've seen a shift from people saying things to me like, well, isn't what you do really dangerous? And aren't you afraid when you're outside with all these animals? To people, really accepting like, oh yeah, that's a good place for you to be right now. Oh yeah, we should all be, in nature a little bit more. Oh yeah, I guess wild animals aren't eating everybody up.
What is your dream for the Black community as it relates to your work? what can we do for wildlife?
I have this dream, this hope, this prayer of, you know, the outdoors and nature as being an ultimately, consistently accessible space for wellness and for healing and for joy and triumph, right? And the Black experience is is almost entirely full of painful memories and history and a lot of society working against our best interests or trying to. And yet Black folks are incredibly resilient, incredibly joyful, innovative, creative, just rich with so much greatness. And there have been very real barriers to us enjoying
Mhm.
time in the outdoors. Throughout our history, we have been forced to be outdoors. We have been taken
Yes.
outdoors, but barriers to our choice to be in the outdoors for fun. And so I truly
Mhm.
see Outdoor Afro and other Black leaders as really helping to facilitate, you know, Black folks experiencing nature the way they choose to, and in this
That's
joyful, fun, healing space and an additional wellness space that, is ideally free. And when I say nature, I mean everything from, the garden or the backyard or the playground to, very wild, remote places and everything in between. And I just applaud, Rue, your vision, your leadership, your organization, the people who make up your organization, the participants, because there's a bravery to even sign up, for an outdoor Afro
yes.
experience. I applaud it, and I just see how how great this vision is and how many people are going to benefit, from following along. And it feels overwhelming actually with emotion to just know that we're in a place today in 2021 where this is possible. It's possible for
Yes.
groups of folks like us to know that we're safe, we're together, we're supported, and we are well. And more of that, more of that. I love being asked about myself, but Rue, you are, the woman of the hour, right? So, this is my chance to ask you what's going on? Like what can you share with me and, and with all the guests, what's right now looking like?
I'm glad you asked because, I have really been pushing a lot this last
Hmm.
year and a half.
Hmm.
The demand for the work of getting outside and helping people learn how to get outside, often for the first time in
Hmm.
this moment of COVID and the world reopening, has really increased the pace of our work on both the
Yeah.
staff side, but also more visibility in the media.
Hmm. Hmm. I've
Right.
noticed.
Like you said, it's like it's what you pray for, but you're like, okay, okay, universe, okay. And then, but to balance it all out, especially in this last few months, I've been really deliberate about creating time for rest,
Hmm.
because I think that sometimes we can overcompensate. We feel like we got to do
Hmm.
everything now, and we have to say yes to everything people are asking
Hmm.
us to do. And so I actually just came away from a 2-week vacation with my fiance,
Yes.
who asked me to marry him just for my birthday. Yes. So,
Oh, all that good
and
Black love.
yeah, I know. And for people who've been like involved with the glamp out slash glamp in, he's had a fantastic appearance in each of these events. But what he represents for me is a chance to just put outdoor Afro aside and to
Mm.
get out in nature myself.
Mhm.
And I think it's so important, even though we are the leaders and the advocates of people getting outside, to remember and to practice that we need the medicine too.
Yeah.
And so we rode our bikes and kayaked in the Carolina Low Country, and we snorkeled in the Caribbean, and we, just did a lot of outdoor activities that, weren't involved with work, but were about us getting closer in our relationship and me having the kind of downtime and focus. And that's something I really hold dear, not only for myself, but I want others to do too. We have this grind culture and grind mentality. And yeah, you can get a lot of things done, but you got to take care of yourself first. And so I'm just really thankful for the moment to be able to do that now. And the other thing that you're also a part of that I just completed is my manuscript for the book that's coming out. That is a collection of over 35 voices of Black people in nature, and Chronicle Books will be releasing that book almost a year from now. And so, after an incredible year and getting the manuscript in, it just felt so good to just turn that nature focus onto myself and my loved ones so that I can continue to do this work with the longevity and the good health that it needs of me.
Oh, beautiful. Girl, that's so nice to hear. Congratulations.
Thank
I said it on
you.
social, but I'm so happy to say it to you. Congratulations, you're getting married.
I just want to thank you for showing up in all the parts of who you are. And it's my hope that someone will be inspired to think about their life differently, their life's possibilities differently, that maybe they don't have to go to the motherland to see the possibility and to live the possibility that you are and what our planet needs now more than ever. So thank you so much for being in this conversation with
Oh,
me.
thank you, Rue. We're in this together, and I would do anything to
You
help.
are.
So,
Okay. So my here, grandson, come on, get in the
yes,
picture. Say hello.
yes,
Okay. Let's just embrace this,
yes,
girl.
let's. Hi,
Yeah.
sweet. Hi, sweet baby. Hi,
Yeah.
sweetie
Say hi.
pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say hi, Miss Ray. We'll see you on the trail sometime.
And this one's only 6 months ahead of my little one, so they're going to be
Oh yeah.
buddies on the trail.